everyone. Welcome to English Champion. On this episode, we are going to wade into the waters of a topic I've been meaning to get to for a while. I've kind of been putting it off to see how things would develop, and reached a point yesterday where an article came out where I thought, okay, it's time to talk about this. Let's just dive into it. And that is AI in the classroom, specifically the English classroom. And I think we're in some very delicate and probably treacherous terrain if we are relying on AI in our English classrooms, and I'll tell you why coming up. I was prompted to explore this because an article came out yesterday. When I looked at the date, it actually came out a couple weeks ago, but it appeared in my feed yesterday, and I was reading it, and I thought, okay, I can't let this slide. We need to talk about this because I think this is what's happening at most other universities as well, probably high schools even. And I think this is a really dangerous path to go down. And so I'll go through the reasoning why this school thinks they're doing the right thing, and I'll offer you my thoughts as we go along. So let me share some of the article with you. I won't read the whole thing, but I will just highlight a few passages about using AI in the classroom. So students enrolled in an English class at this university, major school, are using artificial intelligence tools to assist their writing process, from brainstorming ideas to editing drafts. Now, what the article is going to go into is how they think that basically the computer is helping you do these things like brainstorming and editing. That is not what these tools do. The tools give you the answers. That's what they do. They don't help you along the way a teacher does. The tools, the greatest benefit of the tools is it just tells you exactly what to do. So when the article goes into these traditionally human activities like brainstorming or editing, that is not what's happening here. So let me provide some examples as we go. And when reflecting on the semester, the students shared that it made them better writers. It's like, yeah, no kidding. You had a supercomputer that is way smarter than any human being writing your papers for you, and wouldn't you know it, the papers turned out better. Well, no kidding. Of course they did, because you didn't write them. That's what's about to happen here. So the article continues. The adoption of AI tools in the classroom reflects a growing technology trend in higher education, of course. Nevertheless, the emergence of generative AI tools, those capable of using machine learning to provide recommendations or create content. So let's just pause there for 1 second on this short list. Recommendations or create content. Those are not two separate things. Those are the same thing, all right? Because when a computer gives you a recommendation, it is creating content that you hadn't thought of before. So it's the same. And when you hand a 19-year-old a, quote, recommendation, they're not going to advance beyond that. They're just going to do it because that's the answer, right? That's what it asked the computer to do, so that's what it gave them. So when it says things like I said, brainstorming or recommendations, nope, it's just generating all of the answers for you. Alongside a variety of other tool-specific functionalities, has introduced a wave of disruption within the academic community. The experiment to leverage generative AI tools, including ChatGPT, WordTune, and Google Bard, in this university used it in a junior level, looks like, English class. Last semester provides a glimpse into how future classrooms might increasingly look to machine learning to augment human creativity and critical thinking. All right, so again, it's not augmenting. Augmenting is, I'm going to give you something that makes you smarter. That's not what these tools do. It doesn't make the person smarter. It makes the person look smarter. And I'll talk about that more in a bit. But being smart and looking smart are two very different things. So, kind of the goal of what these people are using this for is not quite accurate. They think it's there to help them. It's not. It's there to replace them. Obviously, ChatGPT has been out for a while. I played around a lot with it right when it came out just to see what it was. And because I anticipated my students would probably be playing with it too. And I wanted to at least know as much as they did and kind of get ahead of them on that. I had never heard of WordTune or Google Bard. I played around with them recently. Google Bard is basically the same as ChatGPT. weirdly, I think it's actually dumber than ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is actually pretty dumb too. But Google Bard, I think, is actually worse. It sort of does the minimal things that ChatGPT already does. And WordTune is interesting because it has the appearance of being more interactive because it can create text for you, just like the other two tools. But it can also offer you suggestions based on what you've written. So you can type a paragraph or however long into a box, and then ask for alternatives, and it will spit out 5 different rephrased versions of what you wrote, which is kind of interesting, and I'll dive into that more here in a minute. And so it gives the illusion that, well, it's helping you by offering suggestions for you. But really what you do is you just click on it and it replaces what you wrote. And so it still wrote it for you. Yeah, it was your idea because you had to put something in the text box first. But writing is more than just ideas. Writing is carefully chosen phrases and particular vocabulary words, and there's voice and tone. And the computer, again, it just does it for you, and then you decide, oh, that one sounds good, I'll just use that. So this is in an upper level English class. So here's how students responded. It's like having a spotlight that highlights each sentence, making me pause and really think about how it adds value to my main idea. It's like, okay, well, again, that's what human beings should be doing. You should be able to do that on your own. She continues, but these tools do more than just suggest edits for my writing. It's teaching me to become a more thoughtful and effective writer, carefully considering the value and impact of each sentence I write. All right, so that's a very nice answer, and I'm sure this young lady is giving the academic answer that makes her and the class sound good. But that's not at all what this does, okay? I mean, that would be nice if the tools did that, but they don't. They just rewrite it for you, all right? The benefit of something like this, I do think there is something that could be useful, and I've actually talked about this with some other teachers and considering this as an activity for older students. So junior level, definitely grad school, it could be interesting to run some experiments with this. And yeah, you enter text and then have the computer offer you suggestions for how to improve it. The problem with that is that you have to have a tremendous amount of skill and knowledge beforehand in order to assess whether the suggestions the computer has made are actually more valuable. If you hand this to any freshman level student or any high school student or any student who's just not good at writing, that student will not be able to tell the difference. Well, one of two things will happen. If the student types in the box and then asks for suggestions from the computer, the student will either go, I can't tell the difference between this and the suggestions because what I wrote, I thought it sounded good. So I don't know what the difference is. They all sound fine to me. That's what the student will say. Or, because the student probably knows he's not a great writer, he'll look at the suggestions and go, well, all of them sound better than what I wrote. After all, it's a smart computer and I'm a bad writer. So they're all good. So how do I know which one to pick? I guess I'll just pick that one because what's the difference? So you're not really teaching students how to discern between good and bad, or what phrasing sounds better, or what tone sounds better. For poorer writers, students are just learning, well, yeah, of course it's going to be better. I'll just pick that and it'll do it for me. So again, it could work for upper division writers because they have learned the proper techniques. They have learned the effect that certain vocabulary or certain phrasing can have on a passage. And they can sort of do an analysis of why does the computer think this might be a good option? Why should I or why should I not choose that one? Would it be better to use the original that I wrote? That kind of analysis, I mean, that's probably fairly useful from an understanding of language standpoint. But again, that's evaluation. That's at the top of Bloom's hierarchy. All right. You have to get through all the other levels first. If you don't even understand what makes a good sentence or a good paragraph in the first place, how can you tell whether something else is a better alternative? You don't know because you don't know the difference, because you haven't gone through the other levels of the hierarchy of understanding. So again, you have to implement these tools very carefully, and they might work with upper division students, but using this at a high school level or a freshman composition level, this really doesn't help, because the computer in essence is still just doing it for you. This kind of myth they're building about, oh no, it's helping me become better. No, it's not. It's just replacing you. It's taking what you wrote and saying, this could be better, put this in instead, and you just do it. It's not making you a better writer. It's just making you look like you're a better writer. So back to the article. People are grappling with the future of teaching and learning, but there's also an endless possibility for innovation and exploration. Another student says, we possess the potential to mold the future of AI tools and their role in our lives. All right. So these are students who really, really need to read some Marshall McLuhan because one of the most famous lines from McLuhan is, and he's not the only one who said it. I think other people have as well. He just was probably the most well-known in the media landscape, saying, once you build the tool starts building you. You shape the tool at first, but then the tool shapes you. So when people think, well, we can use the tool to help our lives. No. The tool's going to use you. You don't know that. If you're so naive you don't know that, you're in for some big trouble, because you're not going to be able to control the tool the way you think you will. The tool will control you. And that's what happens in the college classroom is, I'm going to use it to write my paper. And after about 5 seconds, you go, you know what? Why don't I just have it write my paper for me? Because it's way faster and easier, and then I don't have to do the work anyway. And I'm done in 2 minutes, and it'll probably get me a high grade. And so therefore, it looks like I did well in my English class. Ta-da, give me my diploma, please. And the computer used you, all right? So again, whenever you say, we're going to use the tool, nope, it's going to shape you immediately. And that's what's already happening. She says, if we approach it with fear, it will hinder its development as a productive tool. By embracing AI tools and considering all the ways they can be applied, we can unlock transformative possibilities. Yeah, it'll look like that. And you might even convince yourself that you think that's true. And it won't. It'll just be the computer doing all the work for you. Now, that might be fine. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing in all cases. Sometimes, having the tools do the work for us, that's probably the right thing. I was having a conversation with my wife about this because I was trying to come up with a way to delineate between the appropriateness of tools for cognitive activities versus what I think is probably not appropriate. And I said, okay, so what's the difference between this helping me accomplish a writing prompt and a calculator helping me do a math equation that is too difficult for my brain to handle in my head or would take too long if I tried to do it on paper? Aren't they the same thing? Because I was trying to figure out how can I clarify this idea. And this is why human beings are good at talking to other human beings, because we worked on this problem together, she and I. And she said, I think the difference is that one of those is objective. It's just data. It's just a singular answer you're searching for. That's the math part of it. Whereas writing or anything remotely creative or artistic, it's subjective. There are many possible options for how this could be accomplished. And so if the goal is to accomplish something that has one singular answer, that's just a point of data that I need solved, I don't think anyone complains that we should be using calculators. I don't think that's a problem. But when there are a variety of options for how an argument could be constructed, or it's being used for artistic purposes, for how a song could be written, well, that can be done a variety of ways, and it takes a human to be able to discern what the right way is. And in fact, humans are probably going to create it better in the first place, at least for now. So I think that's the divide. When they say, well, we need to consider all the ways this can be applied. Well, what exactly is your end goal? If your end goal is to have a tool help you with something that is purely objective, purely for data, purely for a singular answer that everyone could use, the calculator is going to come up with that answer, whether a human being is involved in it or not, whether I type it in or whether someone across the world who I've never met types it in. The answer is the same. So it doesn't really matter the human component. The way something is written, though, is based very, very much on human subjectivity and how something sounds or how it looks. And so for me, that's the difference. And so when these students say, oh, I'm just going to apply it and use the tool to make myself better. It's like, no, it's just going to do it for you, and you're going to use it like a calculator, and you're going to think that what it created was objectively good. And we know enough, even in the short months that this stuff has been around, that much of the time it's not objectively good, or it's objectively good, but it's definitely not subjectively good. And with language, that's what we're after, actually. Here's a couple of examples. I saw an article, I don't know, about a month ago from the famous YouTube video maker, Casey Neistat. And he said, I was curious about this AI stuff, and I thought, he's made millions of dollars becoming a YouTube video maker. And he said, well, I wonder if AI can make videos like I make them. And so he told the AI to create a video essay in my style, create one that looks like I made it. And he goes, and it did. And his answer when he looked at it was, this has no soul. He goes, yeah, it made the video, but it didn't make it like a human made it. And he goes, and it's way worse. My videos are way better than this. So that's an example from a multimillionaire who's famous for his human creativity. He's like, yeah, the AI doesn't really work very well for this. Here's another example. I did the same thing in class. Once I had played around with the AI, I was like, okay, how can I show this to students and show some of its limitations? And so I had the computer, I said, I had written a bunch of essays, and I said, write an essay on this topic in the style of me, because I have writing all over the place on the web. It could, if it wanted to borrow my language, it certainly could. And so, in 5 seconds, it wrote an essay in my style, or supposedly. And then I took those two essays, my original essay and the computer drafted essay, and I showed them to my students, and I said, okay, so the computer did this in 5 seconds. It did a good job. Which one of these do you think is better, though? And they unanimously pointed, without knowing which one was which, to my essay, the one I actually wrote. And I said, okay, it's interesting. You're right. I wrote that one. Tell me why you think this one is not as good. And the answer they gave was great. They said, this sounds like a robot politician. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And they said, basically what Casey Neistat said. This doesn't really have any life to it. It's not interesting to read. It sounds like it's playing the middle of this topic. It's trying to not be argumentative, to not take a stand on anything, to not have a voice, to be as bland as possible. It's like what a really boring politician would say. I said, that's a really great explanation. And it was right. My draft, my human-created essay, has nuance and voice and recognition of multiple angles of the topic. And, I splash humor in it. And I have very strong polemic language in it in certain points. Like, it's done by a person, and it sounds way better. Third, just heard this yesterday. I was listening to a podcast with comedian Mark Norman, and he was telling a little story. He and the podcaster were talking about the influence of technology in the culture. And he said, yeah, a buddy of mine, another comic, did what I did with my essay in class. He goes, my buddy told AI to write a joke about a topic in the style of him as the comedian. And it did it. And then he took it to his audiences. And he said, okay, audience, here's a joke and here's a joke. One of them was written by me. One of them was written by AI pretending to be me. And I'll let you decide which one you think is funnier. And he performed both of them. And overwhelmingly, everyone agreed that the one he wrote as a human being, an actual comedian, was infinitely funnier than the one the computer wrote. So again, what the computer can't do is the subjective part of what writing is. The voice, the perspective, the nuance, the vocabulary. It does facts very well. It's just like Wikipedia or anything else you Google. It spits out facts quite well. That doesn't mean it can write them in the way a human can write them. So when you say, "Oh, I'm going to use this tool to become a better writer," it's like, yeah, but how do you know how to do that? Because the only way you would know how to use the tool to make you a better writer is to already be a good writer. So what do you need the AI for? People who use AI to write anything that is remotely nuanced or complex, here's the hard truth. You're simply not that smart. You're not smart enough to know the difference between a nuanced argument or a nuanced piece of creativity and what a computer just churns out. If you can't tell the difference, it means you're not smart enough for what you're doing. You need to get smarter. And the tool isn't going to make you smarter because the tool's just going to replace you. Why would you bother becoming smarter when it can do it in 5 seconds? So that's the difference. And it's what teachers are supposed to be doing. It's discerning between students who are actually smart and students who are only pretending to be smart. All right? And this happens all the time. We know this. I can tell in papers. And I can tell when I'm having conversations with students. Look, any teacher worth his salt, when you ask a question in a Socratic discussion in class, throw out a question and say, "Hey, Johnny, what do you think of this topic?" And the student gives the most uninteresting, bland answer, but has a bunch of buzzwords in it that he thinks will impress the class. You instantly know that kid doesn't know anything about what he's talking about, right? And then you ask someone who's actually smart in class, and they give a nuanced, interesting answer with examples. They can make analogies and comparisons to other topics they've been investigating or other things you've covered in class. You can tell the difference between a student who's actually smart and a student who's faking being smart. You can tell in 1 second. And anyone who can read student writing can also tell the difference when you read it in essay form. So this is what's happening is we're just training students to fake their way through it rather than actually do it. And in my classes, that's not our goal. It sounds like that's the goal at this university is, well, we'll give them this thing and we'll call it a tool and we'll tell them that it makes them smarter because it helps them write their papers better. It's like, yeah, it helps you write your papers faster. It does not mean they're better. So this is what this university is doing. And if I'm not saying that's the worst thing in the world, if your goal as a university or as an English program is to teach people to become less smart and just get stuff done faster, it's like, okay, you can do that. That's certainly one way to provide education. In my classes, in my program that I've built, there's no way that happens because I want students to be smart on their own and be skilled in what it means to be a human being. And I think that's more important. I want my students to be great humans. Seems like programs that do this want their students to become machines. And I don't agree with that. So the tools will end up shaping you, that's for sure. So the professor, actually, one more student has another comment in this article. There's a little history background of the article before another student says, the text says, AI tools in this class work alongside students as they write, generating feedback and options, revisions, corrections in real time. I've already talked about that. This method proves especially helpful when a student encounters a roadblock on a topic. Okay, when you encounter a roadblock on a topic, that means you're not smart enough. Okay, I'm sorry, that's just what it means. So this student says, say I'm struggling to identify supporting arguments for a paper and want to explore new perspectives. If you can't identify supporting arguments for your own paper, that means you're not smart enough. When you're, quote, exploring alternatives, that means you're looking for the computer to just give you the answers. That's what you're doing. All right. So she says, these AI tools enabled me to generate fresh ideas and expand my horizons. No, They don't. Fresh ideas came from the computer. They're not your fresh ideas. You just borrowed them, because if you had your own fresh ideas, you wouldn't need the computer. Okay? She says, it encourages me to think beyond the constraints of my current thought process. The constraints of your current thought process are you don't know enough. That's what it means. All right? So you need to go do more research, go learn more about the topics, go read more books, go talk to more smart people, go learn more. And then learning really doesn't just mean taking in facts. Learning means, okay, I can wrestle with it. I can consider alternative viewpoints on the same topic, people who have disputes with each other. I can analyze the nuance of why that argument is slightly different than this one, because you've researched the topic very deeply. You've been doing it for weeks or months or years even. That's called intelligence. When you have to look up on an AI machine, hey, give me some alternative arguments here, that means you don't know anything. Okay, you need to go read more. And then when you apply that to your writing, it really means you don't know anything, because again, the computer's just doing it for you. Why would you need to learn it? The computer just gives you the answer. So again, these students are imagining that this is helpful because, yeah, their papers end up sounding better, I guess. Well, maybe. But if you're a bad writer in the first place, yeah, everything sounds better. But does that mean it's the best way? Does that mean you've really accomplished the task of communicating your ideas in a rhetorically or creatively interesting way? Not necessarily. It's just better than what you could do on your own without a machine doing it for you. So these students, they think this is being helpful, and they're going to be in for a wake-up call when someone actually asks them to be smart at some point in their life, and they won't know how to do it. So the professor also gets in on this. Again, the students are just parroting what the teacher has said. He says, we ought to be trying to help our students invent and evaluate possibilities. All right, invent and evaluate. Completely agree. Yeah, that's the job of the teacher. The computer is not helping students invent anything. The computer is giving them the invention. And then the kid slaps his name on it and goes, look what I invented. Nope, that's not okay in my classrooms. Evaluate possibilities. As I've said, yeah, that's good. That is what we should be having students do. Evaluation is the top of the pyramid. But again, if they can't comprehend the ideas in the first place, if they can't analyze them, if they can't compare and contrast them, if they can't consider opposing views for their merits, then they're not smart enough to get to the level of evaluation, or they're not skilled enough because they haven't practiced their own writing enough to evaluate whether the new writing is any better than their old writing. So if you can evaluate, you don't need a tool to do it. You can do it on your own. And that's what we do in my classes. Instead of having the computer generate it, what a real teacher does, instead of offloading your work to a computer, a real teacher who's actually trying to get students to become smart instead of just pretending to be smart, a real teacher does this by saying, okay, this paragraph in your essay is a bit confusing from a reader's standpoint. I think this needs to be clearer. What I'd like you to do is I want you to put this passage away, put your hand over it or turn the paper over, open up a new document, whatever format you're using. And I want you to take that same idea that you were trying to convey, and I want you to rewrite it in 3 completely different ways or 5 different ways. Write all those out. And then I'll come back and check on it. And so the kid spends a half hour working on it. And I come back and I say, okay, show me your 5 or 3 to 5 substitute paragraphs or alternative paragraphs. And we look and I say, I think one of those is really great. What do you think? Which one do you think is really great? And maybe the kid points to one he really likes. Maybe he points to the one I like. And then we have a discussion about which one of those, from a reader's standpoint, since I'm the reader and not him, which one I think actually works and why that's what I would like to hear. And then he understands what readers want to hear when they're reading. And then I go, okay, well, I really like this one. Now compare it to the one you wrote before. Let's go back to that document. And almost every single time the student goes, oh yeah, this new version's way better. It's like, yeah, I agree. So let's put that one in your paper instead. So now what the student has started to learn is, when I'm up against a roadblock in my writing, or if someone doesn't like something I've written, what's my strategy? Well, I put it away for a minute and I rewrite that sentence or that paragraph or whatever short passage it is. I rewrite it 3 to 5 times in my own way without even being influenced by my previous version. And then I look at those and I compare them and go, which one of them is better? Because it's different than what WordTune or these other tools do, because I'm the one who wrote it, or the student is the one who actually wrote it. And so they look at their own language, their own vocabulary, their own voice, and determine which one they think sounds better to them. And then they compare it to which one I think sounds better as the reader. And usually they align, because once the student practices more, they get more in the habit of figuring out what a reader wants to hear. And so then they have selected which one they want to substitute based on what they have written. You don't need to ask a computer to do it for you. Is my process longer? Yes, it might take, like I said, a half hour to do that activity, whereas the computer does it in 2 seconds. But the student has now become smarter because he generated the new text. He assessed it. He made the decision. Instead of just clicking a button and having the computer do it for you, I want my students to be actually smarter so that when they go to do it in the future, 1, they have a strategy if they have a problem, but 2, maybe they won't even have the problem in the future because they can fix it on the fly. When they're writing something and they immediately go, oh, this doesn't sound good, I'll rewrite it right now. Well, they're already starting to save time. So the student now is smarter, they're giving readers what they want, and we all benefit. Instead of just having the computer do your work for you, and then you calling it, well, we invented and we evaluated possibilities. No, you didn't. The way it's done in my class, that's actual invention and evaluation. And that is what makes students smarter. So again, you either want students to be smart or you want them to fake being smart. You can choose. They can both be effective in the world. That's fine. I'm not saying you can't be successful being fake, but that's not what we do in my classes. So yeah, the students and teacher continue to go on and claim that it's really helping everyone become smarter, when it's like, well, yeah, the computer is way smarter than you. Of course you think it's helping you. It's just replacing your brain and, using their smarter brain. And then the teacher says at the end, this is kind of funny: these technologies are not altogether that threatening if we are genuinely committed to working closely with our students, learning their voice, reading multiple drafts, and cultivating a trusting, collaborative relationship. It's like, yeah, that's called teaching. That's what we've been doing for however many hundreds of years in the university. That's called teaching. You work with your student, you learn how they sound and how you want them to sound or how they want to sound. You read their work over and over and you develop a collaborative relationship. Yeah, that's called teaching. What do I need a computer to replace that for, or replace me for? I can do that. And I can do it way better than the machine can. Yeah, it's longer. It takes a lot of investment. It's very time expensive, for sure. But you get better quality, as Casey Neistat said, as the comedian said, as my own students have said. So stop outsourcing your work, both students and teachers, to a machine that's not as competent as you are or as you could be. Again, if you're not very smart, then yeah, this is a lifesaver, because you don't need to be smart anymore. You can just fake your way to being smart. But if you're actually a good teacher, if you're actually a good student, being smart already gets you all the way there. And the only thing that's hindering you is time. But once you're pretty good at stuff, it doesn't take you that long anyway. Yeah, a computer can write your blog post in 2 seconds, but I can write a pretty good blog post in 30 minutes and still have the rest of my day to do whatever I want. It's not that big of a problem. And it has the benefit of being me. I'm not pretending to be someone else. And it has exactly what I wanted to say because I wrote it. Those are my words. And so I've never, ever used AI for anything I've ever created. And I never will. And so that's the message I give to my students is be a human being. You can be so much more than what the computer thinks you are and what some of your other teachers think you are. Anyone who employs these kinds of things is not thinking very highly of you as a student, because basically they're telling you, yeah, you're not smart enough to do this on your own, so here, just have the computer do it for you. Or, I'm not a good enough teacher to teach you how to do it on your own, so here's the computer to help you. Boy, there's no way I'm doing that. I will help you. That's my job as the teacher. I'm an expert at this. I've been writing for X number of years. I know how this works. I'll help you. I'll show you the way, and then I'm gonna stand there. I'm gonna watch you do it and help you become smarter so that you won't need me anymore. What this is teaching you to do is use the tool and then keep using the tool forever. Because after all, why wouldn't you? Right? So that's what a teacher's job is to teach you. That's what I wrote this on my own blog the other day, on my own Substack, that that's the job of a teacher and a parent, is to teach you things so that you don't need me anymore. That's the job. Well, the tool teaches you can't do anything without me. And that's not a world I want to live in, where I'm basically a digital slave to a machine. Digital slavery, the addiction process has already started that, where, my students can't even go to sleep at night because they have their stupid phone next to their bed buzzing at them all night. Well, you're a slave to your phone. You have relinquished your own autonomy to your technology. And then the same thing happens here. Why in the world would I want to give up my voice to a machine? I'm me. I want to be me, not a computerized version of me. And that's why I teach my students. You want to be a human being? This is what you should be doing. It's ironic too, because for the last 15, 20 years, however long it's been, we've had these ideas in the youth culture of keeping it real. Well, using AI is the least real thing you can possibly do. You don't believe in keeping it real. You're having someone else take your place. That's not keeping it real. Or, you do you. Well, this is, nope, the computer's going to do me. I don't need to do me anymore. I'll have the computer do whatever I need to have done. That's that. So, or like words like authenticity. We're desperate for people to be authentic. And then we push these tools on them, which teaches you how to completely not be authentic. It's like, yeah, you're a robot. You're a machine now. So I refuse to teach my students to literally sell out, because that's what you're doing. You're selling your humanness to a machine just for productivity's sake. You're selling out your thoughts, your words, your arguments, your unique perspective, your heart, how you feel about things. That comes out in your honest language. And if you're just handing that over to a machine to do it for you, that's literally what a sellout is. You're like, well, if I'm going to have a job someday and I need to make money, then I'll just have this computer pretend to be me. And you've literally sold yourself to a machine. So that, again, I will not be a part of this digital slavery where I have to relinquish my humanness, because that's what these, quote, tools do. Because again, it's not you using the tool. The tool will use you. And if you're using it to write your own, whether it's essays or web material, whatever it is, songs, poems, anything that is coming from the computer and not you, yeah, you've sold out. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sacrifice my own mind or my own voice to a computer just for a paycheck. And so, I offered a post the other day from a podcast that was where the speaker said, anytime you're evaluating curriculum, the curriculum is signifying what it thinks of you and what it wants you to be. And so if schools are incorporating this into their curriculum, the question is, well, what does it want me to be when I leave this school or when I leave this class? What is this making in me? Well, it's making you into a machine. That's what they think of you. They think you're not smart enough to do this on your own, so here's a machine to do it for you, and you should just be like the machine. And so that's the curriculum. And like I said, I refuse to do that. I want my students to be better humans when they leave my class. because being a good writer makes you a better human because you're able to think about the world better. So I want my students to learn writing so that they become a better human being. And that's kind of the opposite of being a machine. So, pick your parents and students out there, pick your curriculum carefully, figure out what your teachers are teaching, what your schools are offering, because it's a signal as to what they think about you. And in my classes, my curriculum is all about people, and it's making us into better human beings. So that's what I do. These AI generators, just to broaden back out a little bit, any piece of technology, I talk about this with my students in class, where they become overly reliant on Google or Wikipedia or any other digital tools. I remind them that these tools aren't leveling the playing field like everyone thinks they are. What technology does is it doesn't always, but it has the potential to actually widen the gap between people. So there's a mountain of research on this. This isn't just me making this up. This is factually been demonstrated. People who are already smart know how to use the tools in ways that make them even smarter, or more successful. People who are not so smart, they get a bit of a boost because after all, it does help them, but it doesn't help them nearly to the degree that it helps already smart people. All right. So, just think of an example here. Like, you hand Elon Musk some piece of technology, and then you hand me that piece of technology. Like, I'll be a little smarter because it's going to help me do something. I'm going to be better off than I was before. But does that now make me as successful as Elon Musk because I have the same tool as he does? Not even close, because he's way smarter than I am. And so he's going to use that tool in a way better way than I ever could. And so it didn't level the playing field between someone smart like him and an average person like me. It actually widened the gap because now he has yet another weapon in his arsenal of genius. So it's the same thing that I talk about with my students where, again, they rely on Google to give them the answers. I say, Google helps because it spits out an answer for you, just like ChatGPT will. But the people it actually helps are the smartest people, because as the research has shown, smart people know how to search on Google better than people who aren't as smart. People who aren't as smart, when they do a search, they're limited by their own vocabulary, their own background knowledge, their own understanding of related topics. Whereas a smart person has a wealth of vocabulary and alternate terms, a wealth of other contexts, a wealth of other subtopics that they could explore. And so their Google searching is way more effective because they were already smart in the first place. Smart people use tools to become way smarter. Average people use tools to become a little bit smarter. And so it's ironic in education where we keep pushing technology that this is what's going to level the playing field. It's actually making your smart students smarter and your dumber students barely smarter. It's widening the gap in your classrooms. That's what it's actually doing. The thing that would actually narrow the gap is teaching the lower level students the techniques and the types of intelligence that the smarter students already have. That's what would actually level the playing field. I might talk about that on another podcast because that's a really important one. So when we use these quote tools in our classrooms and think this AI is going to revolutionize education, and it's gonna make every student a better writer. It's like, it might make the already expert students slightly better writers, but it won't make lower level students better writers because, again, it's just the computer doing it, and it'll only have the appearance of being a better writer. The student actually didn't become a better writer. It might have offered a few grammar tips, and it might have offered a few suggestions for phrases that would improve it, but that doesn't mean you're a smarter, better writer. So there's the difference. With technology, smart people become even smarter. They become exponentially smarter, and average people become a little bit smarter. That's just what happens. And so be very careful of assuming that, oh, we got to incorporate these tools in our classrooms and everyone's going to be great from it. Everyone's going to become smarter. Ask yourself this. We've had all sorts of education and learning tools and computers in the classrooms and given every kid iPads and laptops and all this stuff for years now. Close to 20 years we've been doing that kind of stuff. How have test scores been going over the last 20 years? Yeah, SAT and ACT scores continue to drop. It doesn't make kids smarter. It just outsources intelligence to the machine. So that's the difference, okay? When you think a machine is going to make everyone smarter, the data shows that it doesn't, okay? It makes people more productive, for sure, as all machines do. Using a bulldozer instead of a shovel is certainly more productive. But no one uses the bulldozer and then afterwards goes, oh, this gave me a lot of creative ideas and really expanded my awareness of how to use my shovel. No, they go, give me the bulldozer every time, I'll just use that. So that's what these tools do. So you have to figure out, what is your goal with the tool? Is it to make you more productive and efficient? Okay, yeah, if you're in a world where an objective task needs to be accomplished, or, again, crunching numbers to just churn out a piece of data, and there's only one right answer for doing it, yeah, fine. I understand it, that you should probably use a machine for that. But if it's something that requires nuance and a certain perspective, right now the computer just cannot do that. I'm not saying it won't be able to in the future, and who knows what'll happen in the next 10 years. But right now, if you think this is going to cure your students' writing problems, you are naive beyond belief. I wrote, in response to this article, I put a little comment down below. I said, yeah, this is like saying I'm now a talented singer because I use auto-tune. No, that doesn't make you a more talented singer. It makes you produce music faster, I guess, because you didn't have to practice as much, but it doesn't make you a better singer. And someone below in the comments responded to me and said, well, I think this would actually help those singers want to be better singers and be more creative with their singing. And I was like, I don't know who the person was or how old they were, but that comment is the comment of someone who has no understanding of how students operate. If you think, it's like I said with a bulldozer, if you think giving a student a bulldozer is going to make them a better shoveler, no, they're just going to use the bulldozer. Okay. So we as teachers need to get out of this mindset that this technology is going to make everything better. And by better, I mean our students smarter, when it's not. It's just not yet. And like I said, who knows? Maybe it will someday, but right now it's just not. And in fact, it's probably making them worse, because now they're completely outsourcing their skills to a machine. And so, yeah, what do you want your students to be? Because schools that do this, they're basically telling you, yeah, you're just like a machine on a factory floor. Your job as a human is to just produce things and use the machinery to make stuff. Go to it. That's going to be your job. Is that what we're aiming for in life? Is to be a machine on a factory floor? I don't know. I have higher goals than that. I have higher hopes for my students and higher standards for my students than that. And so I think, just to wrap all this up, I think these tools are continuing to lead to the dehumanization of ourselves, and the power of what it means to be a human being and how we can connect with each other. It reduces the ability to create emotional connections and to kind of bring about awe in people. When I hear a song, or I read the lyrics to a song that's beautiful, and I go, wow, how did that person get that word just right? That is exactly, hitting me exactly where they intended. I completely understand what this singer is singing about. What a powerful song. I'm in awe of those musicians who can do that. It's the same thing of, a piece of art. Could AI make a pointing in the style of pointillism? Well, of course it can, right? I mean, it could do it in 5 seconds. But if you've ever stood at the Art Institute of Chicago, the Chicago Art Museum, in front of Seurat's gigantic painting of Sunday on La Grande Jatte that's over 10 feet wide and like 7 or 8 feet tall. It's enormous. And it's all done with dots. It's in pointillism. You know there's a difference. You look at that and go, holy cow, a human being made this? It's beautiful. It's amazing. How did they do that? You don't get that feeling when you see a computer printout of an AI generated painting. You're like, oh, it's pretty, sure, but I'm not in awe of it. Whereas when I stand in front of that painting, which I've done, a number of times in Chicago, you're like, whew, this is incredible. I can't believe a human being made this. And, that's a feeling I like. That's a feeling I would like to keep in our culture. Could a 3D printer use an AI program to make beautiful marble sculptures? Yeah, I'm sure it probably could. If it can't already, it probably will shortly. But if you see the work of what the Italian sculptors did from Michelangelo all the way up through the 19th century, you look at those and you're like, this is incredible that a human being with a piece of stone made this. It's so beautiful. And when you see works like that, whether it's in painting, whether it's in sculpting, whether it's in a novel, whatever humans create using their own minds and talents, it makes you love people. It makes you go, wow, people are amazing. I need to respect people more because humans can do the incredible things. It makes you love people from all different backgrounds because, I didn't know Michelangelo, and yet I love him when I look at his work. I know nothing about Seurat, except when I look at that painting, it makes me love him as a human being. Like, wow, I totally respect you because this makes me, it makes me happy to know that I'm a human being and another human being made that. And yeah, his talents are way better than mine, but we're still the same. That is a powerful feeling. And I don't want to give that up. It makes you love people. It makes you love history, knowing that a human being with completely rudimentary chisels and brushes could create something so magnificent. It makes you love different times and different places and the people who live there. And it makes you love God because something supernatural is going on when that kind of beauty can be brought about from another person that has the same flesh and blood that you have. And that, yeah, they're more talented than you, but you can still identify with them because you're both people. And that's an amazing feeling. Why in the world would you ever want to give that up to a computer? And I refuse to do that. So if you are a student or a parent and you're looking for a college or a high school or any other type of school where you want things to be easy and you want machines to do all the work for you, there are schools that will accommodate you for sure. This looks like they're on the track to being one of them. And you can get your diploma and pretend that you have skills in that area. Yep, you can certainly probably become fairly successful in life doing that. You can pretend your way to very high heights. I've known a lot of people who are morons, who are in charge of all sorts of things. And I think, how did you get to that point? Well, they faked their way through it. And so you can certainly do that. And it works for a while until someone finds you out and realizes, oh, you're not actually that smart. Let's get rid of you. So yeah, you can find schools like that. But if you want to be a human being, if you want to be a real contributor to the world with your own unique perspective, there are schools that will cultivate that in you as well. And that's what my English classes in my program that I built, that's what we do. We actually learn to write, not just look like we can write. And that's our goal. So yeah, we need jobs, we need income, we need to produce things. But my goal in my classes is so much higher. I respect people so much more than that. And I would encourage other teachers to do the same. You as a student or as a person are much more than a line item on someone's payroll where you're just churning out whatever product your boss wants you to churn out. I think you can be more than that. And so that's what I teach my students to do. For all the flaws of the film Dead Poet Society, it kind of skews the field of English a bit. One of my favorite lines is though, All this is going to keep going on. This play we're all involved in, but you as a person, you have the opportunity to contribute a verse with your words and your personhood. Are you going to do that? Are you going to contribute something to this complicated world called humanity? Or are you just going to give that up to a machine? It's your choice. But I want to help you contribute a verse that actually means something to other humans. And so that's what I do. So, just something about AI there, something about what direction education is going in. Again, I think it's a bit of a dangerous path, and I think we as teachers need to be very clear with our students about here's what these computer programs do, and here's how they're tremendously flawed, and how they're going to actually give you the appearance of being successful, but it's not the real thing. And we as teachers should be better than that. So anyway, that's AI in the classroom. Let me know in the comments below if you disagree. I'm sure many will. This is a pretty controversial topic going around these days, especially at the college level. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Until next time, thanks for listening to English Champion.